Hello and welcome to Soul's Compass Healing. My name is Brianne Lazinski and I sincerely welcome you here. If you would like to know about the one-on-one offerings that are available, you can visit my webpage. The link is in the description below. If you would like to comment, say hi, let me know what you think. Comments are always welcome. I really want this to be more of a conversation than a monologue. And without further ado, let's get into it. We have a full moon in Pisces eclipse happening on September 17th, 2024. And it's conjunct Neptune retrograde. And as I alluded to in my last video, what's happening this month is the spotlight is being shone on the smoke and mirrors aspect. So Pisces, there's a lot of misconceptions about this sign. And one of them is that it's all about love and light. And a big portion of the New Age movement really leans on this principle that spirituality is love and light. And what that is an avoidance of the pain. Because there is a not knowing how to deal with it, or a not wanting to deal with it. And, at the end of the day, it's an avoidance of the pain. So like underneath all of the judgments that I have of the New Age movement and of love and light folks, I actually have a lot of compassion for that phenomenon, because I see an inability to be with what is painful, an inability to process our woundings, and to take accountability and responsibility for that. And of course, that leads to so many issues that we see running rampant all around the world, because it's not just the New Age. Everywhere you go, it's toxic positivity, right? And so this moon is really highlighting that if you are willing to take off the rose-colored glasses, like now is the time. Okay, so we've got this moon in conjunct Venus in her home sign of Libra, who is opposing Chiron. If this isn't the moment that you have the rose-colored glasses ripped off of your face, or the spotlight shone on the smoke and mirrors, where things just suddenly click and become clear about you and how you are in relation to everyone and everything around you, or maybe it's just one relationship, it doesn't need to be that intense, then I don't know what sort of aspects could say that more, really. And it's so interesting because it's happening right after Venus transited the South Node, and this opposition to Chiron is like really illuminating the heart wounds, right? Like, can we see how one's own inner heart wounds interacts and dances and plays out with the heart wounds of those that we are in relationship with? When we're looking into the mirror of another human, because obviously it's very complex, but fundamentally that is what's going on. We are mirrors for each other. The OG trauma, so the original trauma that is in our soul, in our psyche, in our individual memory bank of our past lives, which forms this childhood that we have had, which then informs the cycles that we have with people in our relationships. Because unresolved trauma is always looping. It will come to the surface and repeat over and over again, because it is seeking that completion, it is seeking that resolution, it is seeking that healing. And so with this in mind, it's really important to know that ultimately healing our heart wounds is our responsibility only. Nobody else is responsible for that, you know? And it matters who we spend time with at the same time. That matters greatly. Becoming aware of the roles that we play for one another, right? To kick up this trauma response so that we can then support and reconcile each other to completion. You know, like, I know that I'm talking like in a dream world, this is how we would relate with one another. Yeah, I know that a lot of people, this type of relating is like unheard of. But this is what I am so passionate about supporting people to learn how to do, because I see that people want it, people just don't know how to do it, you know? And so this is how I can support you in a one-on-one session, for example. So yeah, our culture's go-to focus whenever the subject is on relationships. Our culture has a general go-to focus to be fixated on the other person's shortcomings, right? Like, while you're also ignoring one's own involvement in the matter. And it's a way of actually avoiding doing the work to resolve the dysfunction. It's similar to what I opened up this video about the love and light being a way to avoid the woundedness, and then the woundedness just multiplies because, as I said, trauma cycles just repeat and amplify until they're completed. But really, what the point that I'm wanting to make here is that resolving relational dysfunction comes down to your inner work, nobody else's. And I know that that's a bold statement, because obviously we, you know, if we have things that we want to address with folks in our lives, we hope that they change and everything like that, but that's out of our realm of control. What we have responsibility for is only the self. And this eclipse season that we're winding down right now, well, most of people are, has been an initiation to cultivate a brave heart, to look into our own wounds. And I really do mean that. It does take a brave heart. So if that's you looking inside and being like, whoa, this is where I'm wounded, that's amazing. Congratulations. I'm proud of you. And again, if you need support, I'm here. This is what I am feeling most called to help people with right now. And it's coming from a very informed place of real life experience, as well as an in-depth understanding in the science, the latest science on trauma healing. So, what else do I want to say? Oh yes, okay, yeah. So, Libra is often regarded as the symbol or sign of balance. And Jeffrey Wolf Green appropriately corrected this misconception, and he said, Libra is about finding balance between social withdrawal, alone time, and social togetherness, being together with our loved ones or others. And what is so important here is that both, in sort of like an alternating fashion, ideally, finding that balance, right, is so important to gain perspective on what is mine, what is me and my wounds, and what is my responsibility to change and heal and address, and what is theirs. And that is so important. Like, it is, things become so clear when there is that depth of understanding of the relational dynamic. And since this moon is sextile Uranus in Taurus, I'll just briefly speak to Jeffrey Wolf Green's teaching about the yod between Taurus, Libra, Pisces. Every human being has needs, and I've spoken to this many times before. Those needs which we cannot self-sustain, so we cannot give to ourselves. This is all Taurus. We then project and place those unmet needs in hopes that somebody else will fulfill them, Libra. And if we find somebody who does, or comes, really close, or supersedes our expectations, then the tendency can be to make them de facto god, goddess in our life. Like, wow, you're so amazing, how could I live without you? And this is that Pisces distortion, and then that's when the disillusionment comes in. That's when, as I said, the spotlight goes on the smoke and mirrors, because God's like, hey, this has gotten out of hand, there is too much dependency or unhealthy expectation being placed on this other person. And so this comes down to understanding that Venus is a lower octave of Neptune, and Venus is human love. Neptune is transcendental or transpersonal love. And those are two very different things. And a lot, yeah, they're two different things. And so it's I suppose I'll just say it this way, crossing those wires, thinking that, projecting onto another human that they can be a source of transpersonal, transcendental love, eternal love for you, that's actually quite cruel. Because we're all humans. There's nobody out there who's going to fulfill all of your needs. And so this is about realizing that. And then Venus is going to be third quarter square Pluto on the 22nd. On that day as well, she's full disseminating sexy quadrate to Saturn as she enters Scorpio that very day. And so this can bring up challenges and opportunities for big breakthroughs as we recognize the pain of social conditioning or power dynamics and how much of an impact that has had on our relationships. With even regardless of like what religion you were raised in or whatever, like it's so ingrained in the collective psyche, this this idea of like God and human love being so intertwined, and how that has just tripped us up so much. So that's one example of a societal expectation that can be dissipating at this time, because Pluto is retrograde for the last time, dipping into Capricorn. And also an example of power dynamics can be like, okay, I just want to say that in every single relationship, for every single person on this planet, there is a power dynamic at play. Anyone who says there isn't is somebody to steer clear of. Power dynamics cannot be eliminated. Power in a relationship is an inherent part of nature. And so it's about what we do with that power. It's about, are we responsible with that power? So here today, as I stand on this beautiful beach, I've got the good view, sorry. And I'm talking to you, thinking that I have something to say and that people on the internet are going to want to listen to me. I hold some sense of power there, right? It's like I'm kind of coming at you and being like, hey, listen, I might have some wisdom that might help you out. And at the same time, I'm extremely humble and being responsible for that power. And yes, I do mess up sometimes, but I'm human too. And so, yeah, ramble. Moving on. So yeah, if we actually want to really liberate from these dysfunctional relating patterns, then having a look at these underlying societal expectations and power dynamics is really helpful. And in order to do that, this is Venus entering Scorpio, we've got to look at the iceberg beneath the surface, right? So if we're wanting to see measurable, practical changes in our relationships, there needs to be a deep inward analysis of the emotional and psychological underbelly that creates relational reality. The why. The why. Why does this happen? And that's really what I'm so excited about is in my services, I love helping people who are like, hey, I've had this particular pattern in my relationships my whole life and it's driving me nuts, and like, why is this happening? I love to use evolutionary astrology to determine that why, because it's some sort of why, and it becomes very clear when we look at the birth chart. And then I like to go further and, a lot of evolutionary astrologers do this too, but I like to go into the, now how can you heal? So here's a prescription. Here's what I would recommend that you do. Or we come up with a prescription together is more accurate, actually. I'm not giving orders. Yeah. So, anywho, what else? This moon, we have Mars opposing Ceres, squaring the moon's nodes. So, this is Mars Ceres in Cancer, Capricorn axis, and so this can be a cathartic emotional purging, right? I don't know if y'all are feeling it in this lunation so far, but I've experienced it as very emotional and needing a lot of alone time. And this comes back to the fact that relational healing is paradoxically about the self. And what I see in this grand cross is, with any planets that square the moon's nodes, in evolutionary astrology, it's called a skipped step. So it's something that collectively we have neglected to do. We've thought, nah, I'll just carry on my merry way here and just not do the hard work. And it's biting us in the ass big time. And here's what that skipped step is, in my opinion. It's neglecting to reparent the self. So this causes the majority of our relational issues. And as I said before, trauma in our upbringing and our childhood continues to loop and recreates relationships with these same patterns and types of people throughout our life. So if we are not doing that reparenting work and able to sustain ourselves to the degree that's appropriate for each and every individual, then we will run into these relational issues where we are expecting that others, fulfill our needs for us, like I was alluding to before. And then we think that we can't live without them. And then something happens and they're gone. And then that's that whole disillusionment pain. So that's another thing that I'm really big on, is reparenting the self. It's another thing that I think for a long time I was daunted with, and kind of played it down, like, oh, whatever, can't really be all that helpful. But really it just came from this, like, oh, I just, like, don't even know how. and now I do, and there's really easy practical steps to ease into that, like it doesn't happen overnight. It's a huge process. But I think it's really interesting that this full moon lunar eclipse is pointing that out, that we've missed that. And what that has attributed to is very emotionally immature people who don't take responsibility for their actions. And we continue to trigger each other's wounds in our relationships and in the way that we dance with one another and with nature. And that's where we are, right? So, yeah. Yeah, this moon is, similarly to the last one, square Jupiter. So it's about, in this relationship review, considering authenticity. When am I in alignment with my, my words and my actions are congruent? And when am I seeing that out there in others? And how does that shift and move and change when I have different challenges throughout my days or weeks? Or if I'm, like, hanging out with certain people and I notice that, like, whoa, I just did something that, like, I totally don't even believe in. Like, the heck was that about? Right? And so it's that opportunity to attune back to the self and just be like, okay, I was out of alignment there. That was bringing me out of my authenticity. And that's what this Chiron cycle has been about. Where our authenticity has been wounded. And so there's really practical ways that we can do this. Even just setting up, like, a 2-minute check-in after you hang out with people, to just, like, check in and just be like, do I feel like myself still? Like, hey, yoo-hoo, you still home? That's important to do, to evaluate how we show up in relationships and how we might unknowingly change ourselves or sacrifice parts of ourselves because of that magnetism of that force that I was talking about. That's so easy to get into with Libra, that oh, let's just, like, you need this, so I'll give you that. And it's like, it's can become very distorted and dysfunctional very quickly. So it's important to always keep tabs on these things, right? Okay, what else? And this moon is trine Pallas Athena, so we can see clearly. Pallas Athena is just entering Sagittarius, right? We can see clearly. We can see clearly, see clearly. 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 See cle if we really want to. The opportunity is there to see clearly our authenticity and our responsibility in these matters that I've just spoken about. So, I thank you so much for listening to what I have to say. It sincerely touches my heart that there are people out there who chime in. Thank you. So far, this has been a hobby and a warm-up, and I'm really excited for the year to come. It's gonna be a process, but I'm ready to make a bunch of changes to what I offer and things like that. So stay tuned, and please share this video, subscribe, like, all of the things, and be well.